They don't want us to win. Those were the words of Rodrigo Cascante Hernandez, the Manchester City captain, in the aftermath of their 2-2 draw against Tottenham Hotspurs at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on the 24th match of the Premier League match day. In the aftermath of that draw, it seemed all over their faces for Manchester City players, the likes of Rodrigo Cascante, brought Erling Haaland, as well as their manager, Pep Guardiola, that they were frustrated with the result, with the game itself, but more importantly, they felt aggrieved by the wanting decisions from the referee, or the manner in which he handled that game in a whole, particularly for one critical decision that he did not make, or refused to make, or was not brought alive to that kind of situation. And that was Dominic Solanke's first goal. I think around the 53rd minute, before he scores the equalizer in the 70th minute. He said, in the aftermath of the game, while speaking to the media, he said, and I quote, "They don't want us to win, but the referee has to be neutral. I do not know how to feel. Honestly, now I see the images. On the pitch, of course, you cannot see. It's clear, it's a clear foul in the first action of the goal. It's clear foul, and VAR is for a reason. And these small details make the difference. We are trying to do our best. It's the first goal they scored. Maybe if they do not score this goal, we win the game. It's one game and another game and another game. It's not possible. And honestly, I never speak about referees. I respect their job massively, but they have to pay attention to these things. He kicked the leg. It's so clear. He anticipated the leg of meaning Mark Gehi, and it's clear a foul, but it's not just today. It's 2 or 3 games in a row, and I don't know why." Those were the comments of Rodrigo Cascante about Dominic Solanke's goal. Now, here's where I'll start with this. First and foremost, he is right. It is a foul. I, for one, believe that goal shouldn't have stood, because Dominic Solanke does kick Mark Gehi in his ankle before his foot sits through to have a nick on the ball that beats Gianluigi Donnarumma to hit the back of the net for Tottenham to pull one back, and the game is 2-1. That's in the 53rd minute. If the roles were reversed, and I did say this on our live broadcast on Sunday night in the aftermath of that game, if the roles were reversed, that it was Mark Gehi who had committed such against Dominic Solanke, it was going to be given as a penalty. It would have been a clear and obvious penalty. If you want to remember such incident, go back to the game, one of those games back in the days between Tottenham Hotspurs and Liverpool. Mohamed Sissoko kicked Sadio Mane in the back foot, or in the back leg, or in the ankle, and it was awarded as a penalty. Contrary to that particular incident, Mohamed Sissoko did not anticipate Sadio Mane to even put his foot there, because in the frame, as he stretches his leg to take the shot or to kick the ball away to clear it, Sadio Mane is not in the frame, but in a snap, he comes in ahead of him. So as he goes on to kick the ball, Mohamed Sissoko kicks Sadio Mane, and it's a penalty. Now, yesterday, as Dominic Solanke scores that goal, he kicks Mark Gehi, who was trying to defend the ball. Clearly, that should have been a penalty. Now, I want to excuse a referee, Rob Jones, that perhaps he did not get a clear look at it for him to determine that it was a foul or not, or otherwise, so he awarded the goal. However, video assistant referee, or VAR, should have intervened into the incident to say, look here, there could be something that you may have missed or did not see clearly, or you may have underlooked, but we think there is a foul in the build-up to this particular goal. And this is not to absolve Manchester City that they are the perfect side, but an injustice on one of us is an injustice on all of us. At least that should be a principle in football, because what works to your advantage one weekend will work to your disadvantage on another, or on any other given day. It's a story of what comes around goes around. So in this particular case, it was Manchester City that must have felt robbed. And like he says, maybe if they do not score that goal at that moment, we go on to win the game. We will never know, But that goal shouldn't have stood, in my opinion. However, on the other side, I also want to argue that as the principle is, he who seeks equity must come with clean hands. Does Rodri have clean hands? Does Rodrigo Cascante have clean hands? Because I thought he should have been sent off in that game. He should have received the red card. One, he was already on a booking when he goes in on a foul of a high boot against Conor Gallagher. And quickly after that, he also fouls Wilson Odebat. But the referee underlooked that. He waived all that and he did not get a second booking, which would have culminated into a red card. So how come he's not calling the referee out on that one as well? Now, he goes on to say that at this stage, it's fine margins, it's the small margins. It's those small details that make the difference. And he's right. He's right. Because I've said this before, a spell of bad referee decisions can cost you a Premier League title. We've seen that happen to Liverpool. We've seen that happen to multiple teams, that it causes you to suffer relegation just because the referee made the wrong call, That's why they ought to get it right. That's why we have video assistant referee to help the referee officiate the game better, that in the event that there's something that he's not seen, he's not observed well, that he's not made good judgment upon, he's given another opportunity to have a second look at it, if it is a clear and obvious error. Now, in this particular case, it's a clear and obvious error that the referee has not taken register of that foul on McKehy. But like I said, Rodri himself, as he seeks equity, he ought to remember he does not come with clean hands. Why do I say that? I think we have to go back to the Premier League season 2023-2024, when Manchester City last won the Premier League title. You remember the game Manchester City versus Liverpool? I think it was Jeremy Doku's high boot on, was it Alexis McAllister in the stomach? That should have been a penalty. It wasn't given. And so Rodri didn't say anything about that. In the same season, is where he appears to handle the ball. And it was intentional, but he walks away with that. He did not say anything about that. I think in the very same season, and I stand to be corrected whether it was the very same season or perhaps a different season, but I would want to believe it was that season, when Arsenal played Manchester City at the Etihad Stadium, and Mateo Kovacic should have received a red card for 2 fouls against Martin Odegaard. Dangerous tackles. He got a yellow card for one, but he did not get the second booking. So, in other words, that was another underlooked incident or poor officiation of the game. But hey, Rodrigo Cascante, after reviewing all those images, he never came out to say, yeah, Mateo Kovacic should have been set off because that was a bad foul against Martin Odegaard. He did not come out to say that should have been a penalty for Liverpool because Jeremy Doku has a high boot on McAllister. He did not say that should be a penalty or a foul for my handball because I deliberately stretched my hand and handled the ball. He did not say that. So, while he is right in citing the incident he's referring to in their 2-2 draw against Tottenham Hotspurs, he does not come with clean hands. His hands are not clean. As he seeks equity, his hands are not clean. How many times have Manchester City gotten away with bad decisions that worked in their favor? So many times. But like I've said, 2 wrongs do not make a right. Just because they've gotten away with so much, it doesn't mean that they are not right to make a case to say, look here, guys, we think we were robbed. Now, perhaps we could say it is the wrong person bringing the message. And he said about this, that perhaps he shouldn't be the one talking about it, that it should be the manager, but he's the captain of the team. And therefore, he should say something. And he talks about the respect he has for the referees. Now, I want not to focus on the messenger for a bit. Let's put Rodri out of it, the messenger. The message is right, and that one I agree 100% right. But when we move back to the messenger, well, we say you're not the worthy person to be talking about this. Because if you seek fairness in the game, if you seek competence of match officials, then you yourself should be calling the same match officials, even when those bad decisions go to your advantage. I do not want to be a conspiracy theorist who comes and argues that Manchester City, all the time they've won the Premier League titles, they've been getting bad decisions to their advantage. That's not the case. But let's be honest, there's so many questionable decisions that have gone for them when ordinarily they should be going against them in both title-winning and non-title-winning seasons. So for Rodri to suggest, because he goes on to say that but it's not just today, it's 2-3 games in a row, and I do not know why. He seems to suggest, first of all, that there is an agenda against Manchester City. Now, when he says 2-3 games, I'll quickly run back to that game against Wolverhampton Wanderers. What happened? What did we see transpire? You remember the penalty that we discussed that referee Farai Halam refused to award to Omar Mamouche for Mosquera's handball? I thought that was not a handball and it was the correct decision to make. And I stand by that. If in any case, Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante is making reference to that particular incident to make a case for himself that that should have been a penalty, there we will not agree. Why? Because in my opinion, it's a ball to hand. The ball hits the lower thigh of Mosquera before it hits his arm as Omar Mamouche tried to flick it backwards. So that should not be a penalty. If in any case his reference is drawn to that particular incident, then I do not agree with him. If there's any other incident that may have eluded me, where he ought to have gotten a decision, where Manchester City ought to have gotten a decision, then he has the right to make the case. But like I said, whenever Manchester City have benefited from those kinds of decisions that are incompetent decisions, that are bad decisions, where maybe VAR should intervene and then they do not intervene, where he expects, quote unquote, the referee has to be neutral, but then appears not to be, then how come he's not come out to condemn those very decisions? To say, look here, you're giving me a slap on the wrist here, but it should actually be worse because what I did was horrendous. How come that's not the case? Like I said, in that very game, he should have been sent off. Particularly for that foul against Conor Gallagher. We can let the one over against Wilson Odegaard fly because it's a bit light. But against Conor Gallagher, that's a bookable offense on any given day. It reminds me of also over the weekend, Arsenal were beating up against Leeds and Dominic Calvert-Lewin had a bad tackle on Gabriel Magalhaes. He walked away without even a yellow card. Now, because it's a high boot, because he's led to the challenge, if it had been given as a red card, we would have argued that it's a bit harsh. But he was led to the challenge, and it's a bit of a high boot. It reminded me of the red card that Moises Caicedo was given for his tackle on Mikel Merino in their 1-1 draw against Arsenal at Stamford Bridge earlier on in the season. Now, I'm not trying to equate the two to say that they were of the same magnitude, but they sure have similarities. One being led to the challenge, having not even a sniff on the ball, but literally taking out the other player. In this particular case, Dominic Calvert-Lewin does not even get a yellow card for it. So that sort of inconsistency in officiation, that I don't want to call it indiscipline, but and that's why I've always questioned it. Do Premier League match officials go back every weekend and sit in a boardroom and sit in some form of room and pigeonhole gives them clips of some of the key decisions in the part of the weekend, those that are being discussed by the media and the football fraternity, and those that are not, to review them and self-correct and say, here we were wrong, here we were right, this should be the practice going forward. Was that the case? In the same weekend, previous weekend, you remember the penalty awarded to Chelsea by Darren England against Jade Camvot for what was deemed as a handball for Pedri's attempt on goal? That shouldn't be a penalty because, first of all, while the ball hits his arm, the arm is already in a natural position, which he was trying to hide away. And then the referee, when someone to the monitor, because he had not given the referee Darren England, he had let it fly. He summoned to the monitor to review the incident, and he himself comes to the conclusion that there is no clear and obvious error or intent by the player to handle the ball, and yet he still awards the penalty against him. Why? Because he believes, as misguided by the officials in the VAR room, that he had denied a clear and obvious goal-scoring opportunity. Whereas that could be the case, that he denied that opportunity, was it intentional for him to deny the opportunity? Because you cannot have it both ways. You cannot say that the player is not at fault, and then you say you're penalizing him on the other hand. You cannot have it both ways. It has to be either or. He's either handled the ball intentionally, that he prevents a goal-scoring opportunity, and therefore, perhaps he deserves a red card and then a penalty. Double jeopardy. In that particular case, he justifies that it's not a clear and obvious error, does not intend to handle the ball. He then issues a yellow card and a penalty, which is scored by Enzo Fernandez. Guys, like I said, injustice on one of us is an injustice on all of us. That at least should be the principle. And the beauty about this is that I've seen rival fans, whether they've been Arsenal fans, whether they've been Liverpool fans, whether they've been Man United fans, saying that goal should not have stood. That goal by Dominic Solanke in the 53rd minute thereabout should not have stood. Because there's a foul on the defender Mark Kehi before Solanke goes on to score. And that's the beauty of objectivity in football. But as Rodri goes to moan about it, as Rodri goes on a scathing rant about it, that's when football fans have decided to say, oh, wait on a minute, lad. Let's look back in your own history. What has happened to Manchester City before? And the bad decisions that have gone Man City's way, and they benefited from that. How come you never came out to call the referees to be more neutral? How come you never came out to call for fairness in the game? Where were you then? Was it that you never saw those incidences? Was it that you never reviewed them the way you reviewed the Mackay incident? Because you say, now I see the images on the pitch. Of course, you cannot see it, but it's a clear foul in the first action of the goal, which is true. How about when Jeremy Doku went with a high boot on McAllister and that penalty wasn't given? How about when Mateo Kovacic was busy hard tackling Martin Odegaard at the Etihad? How about your own handball? So, if Rodri wants fairness, if he wants equity in the game, he has to come with clean hands to the table. And unfortunately, he does not have those clean hands. Do let me know what your thoughts are about that and more. Leave me a comment down in the comment section. And if you're new to the channel, do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends, and let them know that there is a conversation going on Football Tribe UG. Thank you.